Tired of ads interrupting your favorite show? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Download the Amazon Music app or visit amazon.com/ad-free sports. That's amazon.com/ad-free sports to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime members. Some shows may have ads.
Gabby just gets another one, nicking the ball off of Maddison, trying to do his little, roll out thing that he does every time he gets the bloody ball. Fat foreheaded.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the social media derby. First of all, Jonty, how you doing, mate? Fresh off the derby, you all right?
Yeah, it was a tense game. We watched it together, and you know that my heart was doing somersaults. Man was palpitating out here. So could have gone better.
Vapes were flying everywhere.
Exactly, yeah. Pillows, all kinds of stuff was flying around the room. So could have gone better, but we'll take a point if we have to. I guess it's better than getting beaten. So.
Yeah, it was one of those draws where it feels like one side feels more like a win for one team and a bit more like a defeat for the other. But I don't think it was one of those ones, we'll get into it properly, but I don't think it was one of those ones because if it was like a last minute snatch and grab equaliser, it probably would have hurt more. In the end, it kind of just pitted out, didn't it? But it probably just looked like Spurs probably played a bit better than you guys did. So they've obviously come out very happy.
But also enough about that. So, how are you feeling about the Burnley match? You finally got yourself 3 points, mate. It's been a while.
Yeah, 3 point collectors. Come on. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about it really. Because the goal was good, and we obviously had the chalked off goal as well. So there were some positives, and we didn't look so fragile at the back. At least not for a very long period. At the beginning, we were a bit shaky, but as the game went on, we were all right. But yeah, just happy to not hold 3 or 4 goals and to win a game. It's been a minute. Anyway, let's quickly wrap up the Champions League game week 1 fixtures because obviously that happened since the last episode as well. One of us won, one of us lost. I think you could have probably predicted both of the results beforehand anyway. I think the results went the way that we expected. But do you want to just give me a quick rundown on how you feel about your 4-0 win over PSV? Pretty routine, no?
Yeah, no, we made it look, as easy as it looked on paper, right? Like in terms of, no offense to PSV at all, but that is what we should be doing to that. And I mean, we made jokes before about it being a Europa League group, and I think we kind of proved it. Maybe that they were the closest contenders, really. Obviously, Sevilla are good too, but they were one of the 2 challenges really for us in that team, in that group. Sorry, and yeah, we made them look very amateur. Everything was just firing right. I don't know if it was just like the level of opposition made us look better, but Saka had an absolute beautiful game. Trossard too. I mean, again, if only he was fit for the match on Sunday against Tottenham, because he was on fire. Just everything was clicking. The whole team was looking really, really fluid and smooth, and they couldn't even get close. Really, well, we just made it look so easy. Even to the point where at the end, bringing on ESR was great. It got into that kind of comfort zone where we could start bringing on whoever we wanted, and never really looked in doubt. And I guess you consider the fact that they lost Xavi Simons and Gakpo, who were the 2 kind of people that caused us major issues last season when we played them. It was a really routine game for us. Good to see. Can't say the same for you, though.
Yeah, no. Ours was not routine in any way, though. But I think that can be looked at as a positive and a negative. I think a lot of people thought we were going to get absolutely slapped by Bayern. They've obviously added Harry Kane to a already pretty strong team that they had, but underperforming team last season.
And Kim Min-jae as well for some stability.
Kim Min-jae as well, yeah. He looked really... It's really weird, isn't it? Because he's kind of like the one stable player in that back line. Everyone else is a bit frantic, a bit all over the place. Their goalie's rubbish. Upamecano or Delict normally are just like headless chickens next to him, so he's having to like coach them through it. Alphonso Davies was good though, which was kind of funny because Ten Hag said he couldn't defend before the game, and then he pocketed Pellistri for the whole match, so that was fun. But now the result makes it look better than it was. I tweeted around it like, don't let the scoreline fool you. Like, we still got big issues because I think we started quite well. The first 20 minutes were pretty good. We had a lot of the ball. When they had the ball, they didn't really look threatening whatsoever, and we really unsettled them. But sadly for us, another error kind of changed and flipped the game on its head. So Onana basically chucks it in his own goal, which, for a United fan, you're pretty used to your goalie doing that after last season with De Gea. So it was a familiar feeling. But yeah, it kind of changed the game. Second goal came really quickly. And then, I was worried, the predictions of losing by 2 clear goals, 3 goals was going to come true. But yeah, second half, we started really brightly, got a goal back. But again, stupid error. Christian Eriksen puts his hand out. I think it's a bit harsh because I think in the Prem, I was going to say Prem, you might not get that. But, after what we've had this weekend, you might get that too. But it was pretty harsh. Kane tucks it away. And then I think there was a weird 30-minute period where it was kind of just ambling out until the end. And it looked like 3-1 was going to be the end result. They hit the post a couple of times, but, afterwards, I think they just looked comfortable with that scoreline until a really nicely worked goal that Casemiro scored in the end, who I think Tony Marshall came on, and we were chatting about it in the group chat, and he really made quite an impact on the game, which was a bit unexpected. He actually looked a bit more like his old self. He set up that goal pretty much. It was very important piece to that goal. And then, it was game on. But kind of weirdly, again, we then concede a stupid goal and it's back to 4-2, and it bounced between that. So it was like, so close, but yet so far. 3-2, then 4-2, and then the last minute Casemiro scores again, and we don't have enough time. But even if we had enough time, I wouldn't have put money on us equalising. It probably would have been more like Bayern score a fifth or whatever, and it would have gone like that. So I think they ran out.
I feel like they took their foot off the gas. It felt like every time they kind of got a 2-goal lead, they just took their foot off the gas a bit and kind of let you guys back into the game. And as soon as you got back into the game, they kind of tried a bit harder again, and it felt like they were a bit complacent really with the game. Not to discredit you guys, but did you get that feeling too, or was it just me?
Yeah, definitely. No, I did. It looked like, I think once you got past that 20-minute period, and they got the 2 quick goals, I think that really settled them down, and it had a really negative effect on us. Like, we lost belief. We weren't playing by the same principles that we had in the first 20 minutes. And it became, that was kind of the way the match went, really, until early in the second half when we scored. And then it kind of was that pattern that you just said. Bayern then put their foot back on the pedal, scored again, and then kind of chilled a bit. And then we scored out of the blue. Then they, realised, oh, crap, we need to actually take this seriously. And it just bounced between that until the end of the match. So, yeah, man, I mean, that's probably the hardest fixture, touch wood, that we have in the group. It's out of the way. We didn't get absolutely slapped. Goal difference and the aggregate score comes into play if you're on equal points. So, if we were able to beat Bayern at home by a similar margin, then it kind of just goes down to how we perform in the other fixtures. So if someone gave me that kind of before that match, as a possible scenario, I would have taken that. So I'm not that disappointed. It was more the performance that was worrying. Still, people making mistakes, still not looking stable, defence looking very open. But yeah, Bayern are a good team, man. If they're going to try hard, they're going to be a very good team. If they don't try hard, people will have a chance. And I feel like if City played them, if you guys played them, probably even if Liverpool played them, there was a win available. But we're not at that level at the moment. And for us to stand a proper chance, we would need to be on our game, kind of playing how we were after the World Cup last season, and be full of confidence. And then I really don't think it would have been impossible for us to do what we did to Barcelona, for example, to them, because I don't think they're at City's level or that top table. So yeah, it was disappointing result, disappointing performance, and yeah, it didn't really fill us with a lot of confidence. I was saying in the group chat, here comes the next L at Burnley, but thankfully it didn't happen.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
yeah, let's chat about the game then. Let's chat about the Burnley game.
One last thing I wanted to talk about really was just Onana, right? And we were having a little discussion on this, and I wanted to get into it a little bit just quickly before we get into the game week 6. And obviously he's come out afterwards, after the game, and taken like full accountability. And I remember messaging him at the time, despite kind of making fun and taking a mick a bit here and there. I said to you immediately, like that is a guy that you need in your team. And despite the performance, I think he is a real character that you need in your team. Like that is captain material right there. He came out, said, it's all me, it's because of me that we lost the game, etc., which isn't entirely true. Of course, letting a goal away isn't the best thing you can do, 0-0 to Bayern, but I wouldn't blame him entirely for that loss. What did you make of him coming out? There's been a lot of different viewpoints on it, like he's just trying to doing it for the cameras or whatever else. What did you make of it? Was it admirable of him to come out like that, or did you think he was playing to the cameras a bit?
I mean, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If he didn't come out and say anything, or he came out and deflected, then we'd be hammering him. We'd be saying what we say about Harry Maguire, not taking accountability, etc., etc. So he comes out and he takes full blame, probably more blame than he needs to, because like you said, the whole result wasn't on him. Maybe how the match turned was on him for sure. He shouldn't be letting that goal in. So one goal conceded is on him, that's for sure as well. But I like it, man. I didn't feel like it was for show. I think he's just that guy, isn't he? Like, let's be honest, because he's quite eccentric, because he's the complete opposite to what we used to have in goal. People are going to banter us about him when he makes a mistake, or when he looks silly, or he's been embarrassed, or anything is slightly perceived to be his fault. He's going to get hammered. It started in pre-season for F's sake. He got lobbed from the halfway line in a pre-season friendly, and I saw memes for like 3 days about it. Now, don't get me wrong, that's jokes. And when it happened to Ramsdale, I was joking about that too. So, I can take it on the chin as well. But it's pre-season. It wasn't even like a proper game. It was literally his first proper game for United at Old Trafford in pre-season, and then we was getting banners. So, people are ready, and I think he accepts it, and I'm okay with him, man. He needs to pattern up. He needs to sort out his shot stopping. He can't, let in some of the goals he has been. I think he could have saved. I've said it before. I think he could have saved all the shots in that Brighton game. He obviously shouldn't have conceded the Leroy Sané goal at Bayern. There's been, a couple of other goals that he's conceded where I thought he could have done better. So he needs to concentrate on that, and everything else I'm okay with. He just needs to concentrate on the fundamentals. I'm happy with him with the ball at the feet. I've been pleasantly surprised with some of his claiming of crosses and stuff, because there's also been moments when he's looked a bit aerially sus, but there's been surprisingly moments where I felt quite comfortable with him claiming crosses, which, when you listen to Ajax fans talk about him, they said that was his big weakness. And that hasn't really been the big weakness. The big weakness has been more around the basics, the shot stopping, the making the routine saves.
Yeah, he just punches people every now and then, but other than that,
well, sometimes you need a punch. Those Wolves strikers needed a slapping. But
yeah, that's what
jokes aside,
Rodri must have felt as well after this weekend as well, mate.
Yeah. They deserve that. That's Casemiro payback. He deserved that. He bloody punched Gibbs White about 3 times in that whole melee. He deserved to get like a 5-game ban, but he won't. But no, I'm all right, man. I think he knows it. When he came out and talked about it, he didn't just talk about that performance. He said his start hasn't been what he expected. He hasn't been to the level, and I think that's a fair summary of his first 5-6 games for us. He could do it much better. He's got elements.
Good to see someone taking accountability for the mistakes when you've got people like Harry Maguire and whoever else in your team that try and deflect everything onto everyone else, right? And it's not just
I'm not going to talk about.
It's very common among a lot of teams. It's nice to see someone come out and just be like, "It's on me," even if it's not on him. And that's that captain type behaviour that I'm talking about. That's what you expect from strong leaders in your dressing room. So hopefully, his performances will improve, so he doesn't have to keep coming out and taking accountability for everything. But I liked it. I think it was good, even from a rival fan that doesn't particularly like any of your players. It's good to see at least that there's some people with integrity in the game that can come out and just own their mistakes.
Yeah, for a player who plays very new school, modern style, it seems like his character's a bit more old school, and he comes out and he takes accountability. And I don't even like throwing the captain thing around for people like that. I feel like every squad should have 5, 6, 7 players of that caliber, and then your captain could be any one of them, depending on who you think is, maybe got that motivational aspect to them as well. You know what I mean?
Unless they all take turns turning it down. Yeah,
exactly. As Ollie said. Good on Ollie. His NDA ran out and he ran straight to the Athletics, so big him up. Let's talk about the Burnley game now.
Go on.
So we finally got the 3 points. 1-0, Bruno Fernandes volley. Johnny Evans with the assist. More assists than Mudryk, hold that. We won 1-0. Wasn't the greatest of games, I'll be honest. It wasn't as much of a snooze fest as some of our other games, but it was, for a game where I felt like there was a lot of potential for goals, a lot of scenarios where a goal could have come about. Both teams just weren't really very clinical, and it felt like United.
Are you happy for it to be a snooze fest though?
After
I
am.
Excitement and craziness of what's been going on. It must be nice to just have a nice 1-0 win.
Yeah, I'll take it. And before, even though I was joking a bit tongue in cheek, saying we, probably going to hold an L at Burnley, what I was really hoping for, and what I thought was realistic, was a 1-0, something like that. And because we needed the clean sheet for Onana's confidence, for our defence's confidence, we need to not have such a chaotic match, like you said. The last 3 or 4 matches have all been, games full of goals, games full of incident, games full of errors and stuff like that. And we needed kind of a low-key game. And I think in the end, we got that. I mean, there were some controversies and stuff. Obviously, you had, a goal disallowed and whatever. That was
Johnny Evans again, mate.
Eerily similar to another team in Manchester who got the goal given.
Who shall not be named, yeah.
Yeah, the team that shall not be named. But yeah, 1-0, I'm happy with it. I think the best performers, I think Bruno actually had a good game. I don't think he was doing as many Hollywood balls. I think he was really poor. For getting 2 assists against Bayern, I think he was poor. And we talked about it. And he's kind of, like you said, a bit of a Russell Westbrook of football. Like he just takes all the shots or tries to create all the big chances, and his conversion rate is just low. So he looks like he's so wasteful, and it looks like he's having an absolute stinker at the same time he can put up numbers, because it's almost impossible not to when you're shooting all the time and
the team,
doing everything for everyone. So I was happy to see him. He didn't look as wasteful. He made good runs. He wasn't as moany. He put in a better performance, and one of the better performances I've seen from him for a while. So I was really pleased with him. I think Johnny Evans looked very assured. I think I need to one more time just emphasize that single centre back Johnny Evans is the way forward. If no one else is, if only Harry Maguire is available, because he looked good, man. I'm not saying that he's a second coming of Virgil van Dijk or something, but for someone that everyone's been hammering us for signing on a free, he really didn't look worrying. He looks very assured. Obviously, he's not lightning quick, and if there was maybe a quicker striker attacking him, he would have had some problems. But for that game, he was very comfortable, and he was a good outlet when he had the ball.
The best thing about Johnny Evans is he knows what he is, and I think maybe that comes from the experience, right? They're just playing that many games across so many different teams, and even being part of like title-winning teams, right? He knows what he is and he knows what he isn't. So as you said, if you get the right matchup against him, he's done for, right? He's going to get rinsed. But in that game, and let's be honest, Burnley have a couple of players that are pretty dangerous. Like Koleosho was pretty dangerous. Trezor was pretty dangerous, and Evan, as you said, he looked assured in the middle. Maybe against better opposition, a rapid striker, he might have a few more problems. But even going forward, mate, he was a great attacking threat.
Yeah, no, he was a great outlet with the ball. He didn't necessarily play loads of like line breaking passes, like for example, Lissandro does when he's playing well. But that outlet over the top for that run that Bruno ended up scoring from it was perfect. And he's got that in him. And I also actually think Lindelof looked really comfortable too. So, there is a worry when Lindelof doesn't have someone more stable next to him that he can start to get a bit shaky. And to be honest, that was my worry with Evans coming in, how it was going to destabilize Lindelof and then whoever was going to play left back. And really, he just slotted in, man, and it was a very assured and comfortable performance. And the last person I want to shout out was Hannibal. I thought he was really impressive, man, for a young guy who's not. I think it was his first proper start, or maybe his second start in the United shirt. I think he had energy. He was good on the ball. He wasn't perfect. I think he gave away a few balls here and there, but he wasn't erratic and he didn't try Hollywood balls. He pressed really well. You could tell he's got a bit of bite and tenacity. So I think that's really, necessary when you've got Scott McTominay next to him, who, for all of his size, and I don't hate on Scott McTominay. I know what he is. He can be decent going forward, and he's shown that he's got quite a good, clinical streak in front of goal. But as a deep lying, proper box to box centre midfielder, he goes missing too much and he hides from the ball and he doesn't get in good positions and he doesn't just look like, he's up for the fight, which is mad because he's built like a brick house. And if he actually was to go about it that way, it'd be hard to keep up with him physically, but he's just not that type of player. And I thought that Hannibal brought loads of tenacity alongside Bruno and it worked really well. And I think as much of the ball that Burnley had, I think that midfield combination actually did fairly well. And even though they had a lot of the ball, beyond the 25th minute, I don't think they looked too dangerous. And I think that Hannibal and that pressing midfield had a big part to play. So I was really happy with him. I think the worst performers, it was quite obvious. I mean, Rashford had a stinker. I think it's probably his second or third stinker in a row now. He just doesn't look at it, man. It looks almost like he's not got confidence. And I don't know where that comes from because he obviously scored against you guys. And he's been involved in some goals, but he just doesn't. It looks like he's just making the wrong choices consistently. So I think even in the first 5 minutes, we had a breakaway, and Højlund was on for a centre in the middle to square it, and to basically score a sweaty goal. And he decided to take a crazy shot on his left foot where the angle was almost impossible. And I don't know why he chose that. And then when he did end up passing to Højlund, he was better off going alone or passing to the other side. So he's just making all the wrong choices. And I think he just needs to simplify
social media. I've seen some stuff on social about that, like about maybe Rashford should be benched, should hold bench for a couple of games. Do you think is that bad yet? Because obviously he's been streaky, and as you said, he got a couple of goals in important games. But do you reckon it's bad enough yet that Rashford needs to hold bench for a bit?
I think the performances are bad enough. I think the reason why he won't is because we don't have enough options. So if we had, if Sancho wasn't banished, if Antony wasn't, in trouble with the law, if, we had a normal functioning squad who had options from both wings, then I wouldn't be shocked if he was dropped. Because I don't think this is his worst moment in the United shirt, but I think it might be his worst moment since Ten Hag's been here. And I think he needs to. I think some of the things, some of it, criticism's been harsh because he's obviously playing up top with a new, player, and it's going to take some time to build a rapport and understand each other's runs and stuff like that. But that, I think that's really just confirmed when you watch Rashford play with Martial up front. they've been playing with each other for years. They've almost, I'm not going to, overhype it and say it's like a York and Cole partnership, but they kind of know where each other are. They bounce off each other really well. They play well together. And you always see Rashford up his game when Martial is with him. It's just not happening with Højlund yet. And maybe that will come in time. Maybe it is just a time thing.
There's been some reports that they've been spending a lot of time, more so than anyone else, together recently to try and learn how each other plays, essentially, so that they can get maybe an accelerated journey to becoming like a smooth partnership. So it could come.
It's early.
Do you think that Højlund is the right kind of player though for Rashford to really? Because obviously we've seen that Rashford is similar to Bruno in the fact that like he likes to have a lot of the ball. He's kind of that Russell Westbrook in that regard, probably a bit more efficient maybe. But he likes to have a lot of the ball. He likes to have a lot of the shots. He likes to cut in from that left-hand side. And that's where a lot of his goals came from, right? Do you see that Højlund can be the kind of player that not only makes Rashford, or gives Rashford the space to play like that, but do you think Højlund will also be able to get his chances and, Rashford will let up a little bit and give some of the ball away, give some of the opportunities away to other players on the team?
Yeah, I think so, man. I've seen glimpses in this little period of adaptation with them playing up front, because we've been messing around with this diamond in midfield, and that's obviously to try and get Højlund and Rashford both together up as a two, even if they don't stay in those positions the whole time, but to work off each other. Because if you think about it, logically speaking, they've got attributes in each other's games that work quite well with each other. Højlund's a bit more physical, even though he's rapid as hell. He's not that kind of same over the shoulder, shoulder of the last man type striker. I think he can actually hold the ball up well. I think he'll be a much better kind of 6-yard box, 5-yard box finisher. I think Dalot swung, a cross in during that Burnley match where he was a whisker away from tapping it in. So I think there's little moments where Højlund's doing the right things. It just hasn't, properly clicked yet. But I'm really positive about him. I'm a bit more worried about Rashford because there's a stark difference in their energy levels and their work rate when it's not working for you, when it's not working for them. If you compare Højlund's very small sample size, I'll admit, where he hasn't necessarily been banging in goals and, been playing free-flowing football, he's still worked his nuts off. You still see him closing people down, tracking people back. And like, you can't say the same for Rashford, man. There's some unfair comps going around on social of him not tracking back and, showing his maybe lack of effort, which I think, is harsh. But it's not unfounded. He doesn't work hard enough. He doesn't track back enough. And there are a lot of times where he looks like he's above doing that. And that's going to be a problem for Ten Hag if he doesn't get it into Rashford, that he needs to do the same as everyone else, and that's track people back, work hard, double up if he has to, which I think, to be fair, in the Arsenal game, I was saying it to you, he better double up and track back and help whoever's playing left back against Saka. And we saw it in that first 60 minutes, he was doing that. And it was, Saka had a very quiet game. It was not only because of Dalot, it was also because he had help from Rashford for big chunks of that match. So he needs to be able to do this week in, week out, and not only do it in some of the, few select big games. And the last person I want to call out is Casemiro. I think people are glossing over his, performances because he scored a couple of goals against Bayern. He's still got run circles round by Musiala in that match. It was, it looked like, the passing on the baton like an old geezer who's looking to retire, just getting absolutely smoked by the young whippersnapper who's ready to take over. And it wasn't quite as bad against Burnley, but he still looked very fragile and he still looked very easy to get beyond. And Burnley don't have the best midfielders, so that shouldn't necessarily be happening in that game.
I think part of the reason is that we might have mischaracterized what kind of player Casemiro is. And I'm going to say this. I think Amrabat is more the kind of player that we're expecting Casemiro to be in terms of legs and in terms of sticking on people and, being all over the place, kind of engine type Kante everywhere all the time defensively. I feel like Casemiro actually fits more into like a Scholes type of role for United, where he's not going to be defensively super strong, and he's not going to be all over the park getting everyone all the time, but he's not even going to try because he's got someone next to him that can do those kinds of roles, and he's going to be more about dictating tempo. And I feel like actually maybe we've just kind of pigeonholed him into a defensive mid, and you know what we expect from a defensive mid these days, right? They've got to be all over the place, high energy, putting tackles in all over the place, winning duels, winning 50-50s. And I think maybe his better role, where he's maybe better suited, is in that kind of, 8 role next to an Amrabat who's going to be more of an engine there. Because I know obviously at Real Madrid he was in a defensive midfielder position, but you can't say that was like the real style that they tried to play, right? He was able to play a little bit more, sit behind Kroos and Modric and whoever else, but he had like absolute warriors behind him who were really good one-on-one players, and they kind of had a great understanding that he didn't have to do all the defensive work all the time. And I think he's shown now with his goal-scoring ability and his technique, just his general technique, that maybe he's actually better suited to an on-the-ball kind of position where he can dictate tempo, distribute the ball out to wings, distribute the ball out to Bruno, support in whatever capacity is required, late runs into the box to get goals every now and then. And maybe it's Amrabat who needs to be sat behind him with an engine, just sweeping essentially. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I feel like maybe we're just expecting the wrong thing from Casemiro.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could work, but I think the most likely scenario will be they'll play together. And I think you'll have a double pivot of them both together in that midfield. Because I think if you think about Casemiro at Real Madrid, he had Modric and Kroos slightly more advanced in front of him, but they weren't attacking mids.
No, they would both sit, and he would kind of sit even further.
They were kind of box to box-ish, but they didn't
Modric
lose the
more
ball.
So than Kroos,
yeah, they didn't lose the ball though. This is the thing. Like if you look at who he has in front of him right now, he's had Christian Eriksen and Bruno for the last season, yeah, and then now he's had Mason Mount for a bit, and Bruno and Christian Eriksen and Bruno. And those players are high risk taking midfielders. And actually, really, they're both AMs, if you think about it. They're both cams, aren't they? And so they're way too advanced. So you see this big, huge gap in between those two midfielders and Casemiro, which didn't happen with Kroos and Modric. Whether they were sitting or whether they were bombing, both of those midfielders were a lot closer to Casemiro. And when they did push forward, they didn't lose the ball very often. And when they did, they had the engines to come back and help him. And we don't have that setup. Our formation's not set up that way. Or we haven't had the right player sitting next to Casemiro. Because let's be real, Bruno's not going to be a Modric or Kroos midfielder. He is a cam. He's going to be attacking, even though he's everywhere and he's running everywhere. He's
free roam. He's a free roam type of player that needs to play in an attacking position.
He's the wonder ball. He's the wonder ball, Hail Mary attacking midfielder who's going to try every single type of attacking through ball and chance creation. So let's be real. If you're going to have that type of player, it's a huge luxury, and you need to have two midfielders who are going to be much more disciplined. And I think if you have another strong, physical, kind of squashbuckling type midfielder next to him, I think he'll be all right. I think the old age thing has been blown out of proportion. He's not able to do it by himself now, sure. But if you put someone else next to him, and Amrabat is of that right age, that right stature, I think they could do well together.
But I imagine that at some point, Ten Hag's going to go to a possession style of football, right? We've seen that in pretty much every other team that he's been managing, right? He likes a possession type game. He likes to build from the back. He likes kind of the short passing kind of mentality. At the moment, you're a very counter-attacking type team. Do you not feel that if you have if you have a double pivot and you have two sitting midfielders, and then Bruno, who we know is going to be very advanced in the field, that there might be a gaping hole in between those two, and the link up between the double pivot and Bruno might get disconnected? Because in a counter-attacking game, I can see that working, right? You sit back, kind of have the two of them defending, cleaning up, getting the ball, and then like Casemiro spraying it out to Rashford or spraying it out to whoever your right winger is, or spraying it out to Højlund, right? But if you're going to play a more possession style of football, doesn't that mean that a single pivot with like an 8 next to them that's slightly more advanced, that can play the link up between, the 10 and the 6. Don't you feel like that maybe Casemiro could fit more into that? Or do you see yourself playing that counter-attacking football for a prolonged period of time now where you've just got two sitting guys spraying it out?
Now, I don't think that when I say two midfielders, I just mean like proper midfielders. I don't necessarily mean two Kante type sitting in front of the back four number 6s. I mean more like 6-8s.
Who's going to be the further forward of the two? Then?
I would imagine Amrabat's going to be slightly forward because I see, if you look at and compare it to that Ajax team that Ten Hag had when they got to the semi-final, they had what's his face, the Norwegian centre midfielder slightly deeper as more of the shielder, and then they had Frankie as the slightly more advanced midfield 6 or 8, and then they had Donny as the 10, and they managed to hold the ball because Donny was Frankie was super press resistant and didn't lose the ball, and their 6, or I forgot his name now, he was good on the ball,
Mansvar,
very physical. No, I've forgotten his name now, but he was more in that Casemiro mold. And then you had Donny, who was hardworking and kind of is Bruno without the killer balls. So I see them trying to progress to that style more than anything. And I think Amrabat is a B-Tech version of Frankie in a lot of ways, but probably a bit more physical. But he's very press resistant. He holds the ball well. He carries the ball well. And he progresses the ball forward with progressive passes really well. So I see that being the midfield probably that he's going to aim for once they're all fit and they've got some synergy. And I wouldn't be surprised to see like Mount on the right-hand side or something, and then tucking in and joining in the midfield to cover for Bruno if they if one of them is super advanced or we lose the ball and we're worried about losing the ball on transition. So yeah, I think that's where we're going to go. To be honest, I'm not saying that with any confidence. That's what logically makes me think will happen, but I can't say for sure because this season I feel like Ten Hag's been very hard to predict. He's been very unpredictable, both with his team selections, but also his in-game management has been, it's not been something that we're used to compared to last season. Because last season, we saw it often that he would hook someone at half time. He would make big brave decisions early in the game when he saw it not going right. And that hasn't happened this season. I think he's made really late subs and strange subs when he has made them. So it's hard to tell, man. But let's get into the questions then, because I think there's still some questions you have around.
Well, I think there's really just one major question that I want to ask before we move on to the Arsenal portion, and that's really just around the disallowed goal. And I think this is going to rattle you somewhat, but obviously we saw Evans essentially score and it get ruled out for Højlund interfering with play from an offside position, right? And I think he was kind of jostling with the keeper a little bit. And that was deemed to have been detrimental or for him to be interfering in play from an offside position. And the goal is obviously ruled out. And now it won't hurt as bad because you ended up getting a goal and you ended up winning the match. But what was your take on that? And why do you think that was disallowed in comparison to the Man City one, where obviously was it Aki or Akanji, can't remember who it was, kind of jumped out of the way of the ball. You saw the goalkeeper kind of hesitate before, and it looked clearly to a lot of people that he had interfered with the play from an offside position. And it seems like they've maybe changed the rule a little bit here, or they're just implementing it differently. How did you see it? And do you think there is like an agenda against United, or do you think the PGMOL is just making changes on the fly based off of the feedback?
All right, so I might shock you because I don't think I am going to be rattled by this, because I do think it was the right decision. And I think the PGMOL need to concentrate on making the right decision and not trying to strive for like consistency over correct decision. So I think the City incident, they had a stinker and that was clearly offside. and they made the wrong decision. And for whatever reason, they made the wrong decision. I don't know why, but it was wrong, and it should have been disallowed. But that doesn't mean that this one should be ignored, or they should try and stay consistent with their decision making. They should strive for the right decisions. It just stinks that it happens to be that City got away with it, and then we get rightly pulled up for it. So I have no arguments with the decision. It's obviously just annoying that there are two almost identical situations and two different decisions being made. But at the same time, I've got to try and stay level-headed about it, because we are only 6 game weeks into the season. Every single season, the beginning of, the first 4 or 5 fixtures are marred by loads of controversy, because the referees and the PGMOL have tweaked rules or implementations or given new guidance to the referees and officials, and they don't get the decisions right straight away. They have always, pretty much every season, they have a teething period where things are just outrageous and the decision making is just like nonsensical and doesn't, everyone's up in arms and feels like they're being screwed over. And Ty from AFTV is coming into the camera saying, you stink. I hope you lose. I hope you get relegated. But I don't think there's agenda. I think we've been on the bad end of the stick quite a few times at this beginning part of the season. But yeah, hopefully things will improve and just the right decision will be made going forward. When I first, because I saw the goal, walked away for a minute, went and got a drink, came back, you told me it was disallowed. I saw it was 0-0, so I was obviously at the beginning. But when I saw the replay, I was all right, fair enough. And then you get to rage because you're like, City got away with that bloody or whatever, and you start getting annoyed. But yeah, it's about getting the right decision and not, aiming for this inconsistently wrong. I'd rather than be right.
Two wrongs
than
don't make a right, essentially. Yeah.
It's not going to make me feel better. But I mean, it would, because it's City, it would make me, kind of laugh and joke a little bit. But, if it was Brentford getting screwed over, I wouldn't feel that way. I'd just go, wow, the refs are just all over the shop. This isn't good. It's better to have, the right decisions made. But yeah, I can't lie. It does make it easier that we still got a goal and won. If it was 0-0, I might be on here, saying it's a disgrace and losing my mind. But I'm okay with it in the end, man. I think it was the right decision. So let's move on and let's not hammer the refs every single week, unless they deserve it, which they may later when we talk about the Arsenal segment. But yeah, man, we got the win and we move on now. We've got Crystal Palace back to back. We've got them in the Carabao Cup, I think tomorrow or Wednesday, and then we've got them again on the weekend. I'm hoping we get through. I think in the Carabao Cup we'll probably rotate a little bit, but you never know with Ten Hag. He played a full strength squad pretty much throughout the whole of the Carabao Cup and FA Cup last season, even against weak opposition. So he may go for it again, and I can't blame him. But the league match is more important for me. We need to make up from this poor start. So if I had to prioritise one, I'd go out the Carabao Cup if we could win our league fixture on the weekend, because we need those points. And yeah, people have told me enough now that an energy drink cup doesn't count for anything. So let's move on to bigger trophies. But yeah, let's talk about the Arsenal game then. It was definitely the big marquee fixture of the week. We had some hilarious predictions. The Tottenham fans had chest, I will say, for this game. They came in very confident. Not necessarily that they would beat you guys, but I think that, they believed that they'd stand a chance to come away with a draw or, at least put up a much better fight than they have in the last few seasons. I saw some very level-headed Arsenal fans predict crazy scores, 4-1s, 5-1s, all kinds of nuts, confident predictions. But yeah, it ends up 2-2. Yeah. What did you make of it, Johns?
Well, I mean, I want to say on here that when I predicted, I actually did predict that it was going to be either, I think, a narrow victory or a draw, depending on how Arteta lined up. Now, obviously, taking into account the injuries, I didn't realise Trossard was injured in the run-up to the game. We had a weak bench, man. I was not happy with that bench, seeing Cedric and and these dons on that bench again. That was not making me happy. So from that perspective, obviously we lined up with Gabby Jesus on the left hand side, Nketiah up top, and then Saka on the right hand side. Came again with Vieira starting over Havertz next to Odegaard, which was again nice to see. Backline looked as it should, I think, and obviously I might have to hold my hand up and say, am I bad? Because it does look like Raya's solidified that position, at least for the last couple of games now. So, and again, earned his spot really in that match too. So can't say too much about that. But from team selection point of view, I guess he's made the best of a bad situation. I don't know very much more what he could have done there. I guess the only alternative would have been starting Havertz, maybe sticking Vieira out left. Not sure, but I was pretty happy with the team selection. So if I get into the game now, I mean, it started out pretty cagey. Well, I don't want to say cagey necessarily, but it started out where neither team was like dominating. It was pretty even among both sides. I think there was chances on both sides. It looked like, Spurs were going to come out and keep playing the football that they were playing for the games before that, which I think was big from Postecoglou and obviously worked out in the end because you saw, there's multiple kind of mistakes from that back line, either Udogie or Maddison or whoever else, trying to play out from the back and do some things maybe they shouldn't be doing, trying to play line-breaking passes from the edge of their 18-yard box with people that are on the halfway line. And we were kind of coming in, intercepting. Gabby Jesus was lively as always, like going flying into challenges, nicking the ball, being a nuisance as he always was. But, after that, obviously we saw a number of chances, Gabby Jesus mainly. One of them at the back post, I remember, a great save from Vicario, who's looking like, I might have to eat my words on him as well, bloody hell, because I said he was absolute shit. And he's coming out here doing like flying bloody, crazy saves out here like David Seaman. So that was the first one. Then obviously Gabby Jesus gets another one, nicking the ball off of Maddison, trying to do his little, roll out thing that he does every time he gets the bloody ball. Fat foreheaded. He grabs the ball off of him and he just snatches at it. I said to you, when you watch the slow-mo replay of a Gabby Jesus, shot, everyone else is moving in slow-mo and he's moving 100 miles an hour because he snatches at everything. He's he's got so much pent-up energy. And it comes out in his challenges sometimes too. And he just snatches at things and just tries to smash them, just makes the wrong decisions when it comes to finishing. And it's infuriating when, if you think about the fine margins that decided that game, if Gabby Jesus puts away one of those two opportunities, it's a different game altogether. And then obviously Saka's goal, I feel like it was harsh. I know the ball was going wide, but I wanted him to be able to claim that goal. It's a shame that he couldn't. But obviously doing the thing that he does so well, and it felt like Udogie maybe was a bit naive to think he was going out on his right foot. And that's how you can tell people that have played against Saka versus people that have never played against Saka, because he sold him immediately. And wasn't very much defensive support really from Son. Sold the both of them, smashes it. I'm so happy it came off of Romero and that OG gets to go against his name. If it can't be Saka scoring, I'd love to see Romero OGs because he's an absolute no chance for Vicario. That's not one of the ones that we've discussed before where, the goalkeeper should save it off a deflection. That one was absolutely huge. That was my bad. Not much you can do off of that one. And then Saka comes out and, he does the dart celebration, which I gotta love. And I mean, after the game, the little explanation from Maddison about how they were kind of joking in the England camp. I like it, and I want to give a quick shout out, a little 30 seconds. Anybody that's telling him to stop doing that, or telling him, "Oh, that's not for you. You're the star boy. You're whatever else. You're too nice for that." Shut up, because he's been carrying us through hard times. You think that when he was missing penalties for England and people were racially abusing him, you think he's going to sit there and just not care? He can come out and do what the F he likes when he's carrying a team on his back at that young age for the last 3 years. He's been carrying us, and so. Anybody that wants to say that, you play against Tottenham at your home ground, do what you want, especially against that fat four-headed again. I don't care. If it was I don't know, Van de Ven or, somebody that a bit nicer, go ahead. But Maddison's been there 5 minutes and he's already talking like he's grew up in Tottenham. Shut up, man. You're from Leicester. So, yeah, I mean, on that note, go 1-0 up. And then from there, it's just the whole phase of play is... Yeah, it opened up again. Obviously, Tottenham, I don't know, something switched on in their minds. And obviously, you see a really good finish from Son, but it's just a really crazy phase of play. Like, I can't remember who it is. Maybe Maddison like swings a ball in. It's back post. Raya's like scrambling to get it. I don't know if he's sure if it's actually going to go in or not. Like, he's not really, he doesn't really know what's going on, and he flaps it out. He flaps it out onto Saliba's head, maybe.
I can't remember who headed it out. I think it might have been...
flaps it out to either Saliba
Ben
or Gabriel.
White, I think.
Maybe.
I think it was Ben White or something headed it out, and then it lands to Maddison.
So
I don't think it was Maddison who crossed it. I think
it must have been Kulusevski, maybe, from the other side. Swung it.
Yeah, or Porro. Maybe it was Porro.
Yeah, and and then it comes to, obviously, to Maddison in a position you don't think is that dangerous. But when you look behind Saka, you're like, there's no one there. So if he gets past your Saka, you're done. And there was no one coming out. You'd expect either White or one of the three centre-backs that was literally stood on the front post, one of them to come out as Saka gets turned. And it's a naive mistake from Saka. You know that's coming. If he's a little bit more aware, if he's looking around a little bit more, he knows there's no one behind him, so just push him back. You don't need to go for the big game, a ball-winning challenge there. That's not the right position for that if you're positionally aware of who's behind you. So he just gets turned and, Maddison wants to talk like he'd done him up. If it was Rashford and he did it to like party like he did last season, go ahead and talk all the you want to talk. Bruv, you literally dropped the shoulder and went the other way. Like, it's not like you nutsed him, flip-flapped him or whatever else, mate. Like, it's simple skills, bruv. That happens to me every 5 minutes in the park. Right? So he goes to the byline and then, again, there's three men that are congregating on the front post. They've set up a tent, just chilling on the front post waiting for something to come in. Go out to him, and then no one's watching Son come across. And it's a great finish from Son. Can't say anything about that. Like, Raya's got no chance. He's just come across three defenders and not a single one of them has picked him up. And I guess split-second type decisions, you can't pick him up, but you need to be smarter to get to the ball. So maybe that's a Ben White miss. I don't know what it is, but obviously Saka's got to take some blame there too. From there, we go into... Was that after halftime? That must have been after.
No, that was just
before halftime.
Yeah,
we go in there, and then what comes out the other end of the tunnel after we come back out? I see that Billy Goat, dyed hair, coming out the tunnel, and then I see Mr. Langwood himself doesn't know what day of the week it is, And they come out, and I see Rice coming off, and I'm seeing Rice on the bench. I'm thinking he looks angry. Little do I know he's obviously got a back injury or whatever else, but I was fuming to see them two come on. Those are not the people I want to see come on in these games. They're both far too relaxed on the ball. And, we obviously go further into the game. I think it's Ben White. It ends up coming to Ben White's feet off like a scrambled kind of shot. And he gets a shot on target. It hits Romero's arm. Absolute howler from him for a game. Shocking. OG and a given away and a penalty. If you had him in your fantasy team, that'll teach you for having him in your fantasy team, I guess. It's a clear pen. Don't want to hear it. And then obviously, Saka, 2 steps, shot just scoops it down the middle. Vicario's got no chance. And from there, I'm thinking, all right, we're in the clear here. He does it again. Doesn't forget. He's got to get that dart on target. Triple 20 in them ones. and then, falls to Jorginho. And what does he do? I don't know. He starts stuttering on the ball. He forgets how to play football. He forgets how to pass. I don't know, like his controller freezes or something, but he doesn't know what he's doing, loses the ball. Maddison comes in. Saliba's obviously in no man's land in between two players. He late decides to go to Maddison, plays it straight to Son. Great finish. Can't do anything about it. And I'm fuming. You saw me. I dashed my vape across the room. nearly hit someone in the living room. So I was fuming. And Arteta comes out after the game and says, "Oh yeah, people make mistakes. We still love Jorginho." No, we don't love Jorginho. No one wanted him in the first place. You bought a Chelsea reject that nobody wanted, and not even of the two crappy midfielders you could have bought. You could have bought the better one, who's now gone to City and is going to light things up. And instead, you get Billy Goat Gruff, who spends his weekends at Carnival instead of training. So, no, I don't love him. Get him out, and Havertz can jog on as well, because both of them were shocking. And it's a sorry state of affairs where it's game week 5 and we've got to resort to them lot again. And we've got to resort to Cedric Suarez on the bench. And we've got to bring in, players that really aren't fully fit or match fit on the bench. And they're the only options we've got. I thought last season Reece Nelson was great, but I didn't think we were going to have to rely on him again to come out of the woodwork and smash one top corner. I thought we'd be a level above that with the signings that we were making, and Reece Nelson was going to be there for more of the cup games. But no, we're having to rely on him again. We've got to rely on Jorginho. We've got Emil Smith-Rowe, who can't touch pitch for some reason, even despite the fact he's clearly a better attacking option in what we had there than Kai Havertz or than anybody else that he brought on in that match. So, I mean, at the end of the game, it feels like a loss to me. And you said it at the front. It feels like a loss to me. We shouldn't have lost that game with the amount of chances we had. I just don't think it's right that we come away from that game with only a point. And it shows it at the end of the game what kind of mentality the two teams have. Postecoglou comes out and says, "I'm really happy with that result. They fought really well. It was a great performance. I'm proud of it." And Arteta comes out and says, "It's not good enough. We need to be better than that. We should have been taking our chances. Gabby missed one. Jorginho made a mistake." So small mentality, big mentality. Have that. Postecoglou, I love you, but you shouldn't be proud, mate. You should have. They had chances to win that game too, and we were there for the taking, and they didn't take it. And we were just. It was not a good performance, especially bouncing off the back of that PSV game. It's infuriating, and we should have got 3 points from that. Now we're 5th, further adrift. I know it's early in the season, but we're further adrift from the team that I think is going to do an invincible season this year.
Wow, big shout.
And we're further adrift from Liverpool. I saw a tweet saying, we've gone ahead of Arsenal. That'll be the last time, that they're ahead of us for the rest of the season. They're not going back ahead of us. And that really infuriated me. And if Arteta can't fix up and start winning these matches that he needs to win and starts putting in better performances, that tweet's going to come true. We ain't going to get ahead of Liverpool because they look on fire. They let goals in and they still come back and batter people 3-1 or 4-1 or whatever else, right? And they made West Ham look amateur. So Mikel Antonio as well, shut up. All right? But anyway, yeah, I'm furious. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, man. I think I hear you. I think there's some parts of what you said that I understand, that I agree. I think you should be aiming always to win your home games, regardless. And I think it doesn't change in a big game. I think it makes it even more imperative to win your big matches at home, because then it gives you a good kind of launch pad to kind of attack the away fixtures with a bit more freedom. And you see last season for us, for example, I think we beat all of the big 6 at home. And thank God we did, because we ended up getting slapped by everyone away. So it was really saved us and helped us achieve our goals for the season. But yeah, it's quite worrying, Arsenal's form at home, actually. I know it's not been a series of defeats, but I know you beat us at home, but that quite easily could have been a draw. This match obviously ended in a draw. The Fulham match ended in a draw. I even think the Forest game that you won, you were quite worried about it at the end. And even though I didn't think a draw was on the cards, you made it a lot stickier than it needed to be. And it seems to be your home form that's more of an issue, because you're quite solid away from home now, and you seem to be kind of, overcoming some difficult challenges away. But yeah, the home form is a bit iffy, man. But I want to give props to Spurs on their performance, man. I think they were brave. I think going 1-0 down at a ground where you habitually get slapped to come back and get a draw after going down twice, I think shows a lot of character. I think what Postecoglou's done with them in a few months is
got them
madness.
playing real football.
Madness.
Confident real football.
Yeah, from absolute, prehistoric football to, full flowing, attacking, really brave football in such a short space of time is nuts. They've lost their best player that they've probably had maybe in their history, but definitely in the last 10, 15 years.
And they've got players that were previously mudded out of the mud and now just absolute stars like Basuma. Saar was good in that game again. Like it was
youngsters.
They made great signings as well. Van der Ven looks really good.
He looks really good,
does
man.
look really good, and Udogie looks really good too.
Yeah. I mean, I want to shout out Udogie too because I agree with you in a sense. I think in the first half, I said to you when watching the match, boy, that's risky. That's risky. And he had a period, little 10, 15-minute period where he got the yellow card and he made, a bad back pass, which I think, who was it? Eddie Nketiah jumped on and had a shot from a narrow angle.
Yeah.
And he had a little period where he looked a little bit rattled. And I thought, I said to you, this is going to be interesting to see how he copes with this because we talked about Dalot getting a yellow card against Burnley, kind of, when we were watching the match and saying, it's not good to get a yellow card, early against a tricky, pacey winger that's taking you on all the time. And I think Udogie's second half performance was fantastic. I think Postecoglou came out on a bit of a limb saying he kind of got the best of that side because he's basically saying he got the better of Saka, but in the second half, he really gave us. Yeah, that might be a little bit of a stretch, but I think he gave as good as he got, and he was brave. He didn't let the yellow card stop his game. He still went forward. He still tracked Saka back with lots of energy and wasn't scared to throw himself about. But man, Spurs. I think Romero had a shocker. I don't think it's like, and by shocker I mean he's had two big incidents negatively influence their result. He scored an own goal when he's given away.
Makes rash decisions as well. Generally, I know that obviously the own goal you can't blame him too much, right? But like he does put his hands in a stupid position more so than anyone else I've seen in terms of diving. Like you ain't got to have them both up like that when you're diving in, right? And I mean, on top of that, people were talking about Nketiah maybe needing to get sent off based off of like the challenge he put in on Vicario. Clearly, them lot weren't watching what he was doing, what Romero was doing, because he could easily have got 2 yellows in that game too. So he's a rash defender, and I think it works, I guess, with him and Van der Ven, because Van der Ven's the opposite. Van der Ven is kind of inward and relaxed, and a bit better on the ball, right? And he's a bit more calm on the ball. But yeah, I can foresee a lot more Romero clangers coming in the future, just because of the style of football he plays and the attitude he plays football with. He's going to get a lot of yellow cards and some reds, and he's going to make stupid decisions like he did in that match.
Yeah, he plays high risk football, to be honest, for a defender. And when it looks good, it's going to look like Baresi, and when it looks bad, it's going to look like Titus Bramble. So he goes. That's the risk, though, isn't it? He really plays that type of football for a defender, which, to be honest, you love it when it goes the Baresi way, and you want to jump, and do the Klopp fist bump, and you're so gassed up because it's such a kind of aggressive style. But when it goes Titus Bramble, you look mudded. And you feel like, you want the ground to swallow you up. But he didn't have one of those kind of games. I don't think it was absolutely horrendous.
No one did.
He obviously had 2 bad incidents which could have cost his team the result and stopped them from getting the draw. He's lucky that their midfield, because Basuma was unbelievable in that game. The amount of ball carries he had and how he drifted past. I know you had Jorginho. I know you had Havertz. I know it might have been different when Rice was playing the whole game. But to be honest, in the first half, I thought Basuma probably slightly edged Rice anyway. I mean, if he had a back injury, that may have had an impact. But I think Basuma was class. I think Saar was, he had his moments, but again, he came through it like Udogie. He came through that test. I thought he had a really good game.
Oh, there's a moment where he dashes Jorginho flying off the ball.
Yeah, I mean that's got to hurt. That's got to hurt Jorginho.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Son clinical, absolutely clinical.
Carried it,
and people questioned his kind of big game mentality. I think last season because he didn't have his best season. He obviously had an injury or whatever. But I'm sorry, man. He's got ice cold veins. We've seen it happen too many times. Home and away against you guys. Chelsea, he scored bare against us. He scored against City in the Champions League, if you remember that, those cold finishes. Trust me, he's a killer. And I know he can be wasteful sometimes and he can have purple patches, but I actually think striker's his position. He showed it when Kane was injured. That's where he needs to play. Yeah. He's so clinical and he's got that clutch gene, man. And he will score goals in big moments. And with Maddison, his movement is class. He works hard for the team. Postecoglou said it. He's so team orientated. We know that about him. And with Maddison behind him, as much as you're joking and bantering him, he had a decent game. I don't think anything he did was like I don't think it was like KDB levels of how the hell did he do that. But he did the basics well. He kept hold of the ball well. He didn't lose it cheaply, and he was on it in the big moments, and he made the right decisions, which we talked earlier about. Bruno not doing. We talked earlier about Rashford not doing. He did it in the clutch moments. I did want to ask you something though, because you haven't mentioned Odegaard, and I've seen Martin Odegaard get a lot of flack online. Obviously, people are out doing the Maddison Odegaard comparisons and going wild with that. I'm not gonna go down that because I don't think that's something to get into right now. I know you posed a question in the drafts about Odegaard, Maddison, Bruno, and all that. But what did you think of his game? Because he had a very quiet game, and I think he was one of your worst performers. What did you think of it, though? Am I being too harsh? Do you think he was all right?
I feel like, he wasn't as bad as everyone's trying to make it out, right? And everyone's just trying to do the Odegaard versus Maddison comparison. Okay, so why didn't you win the game then? If Maddison's so great, right? If Maddison's carrying your team and doing X, Y, Z, had Gabby Jesus not snatched at it, would we still be saying the same thing, right? Odegaard, of course, did not have his best game. And if you look at the stats, actually, they were very equal. But the main difference between the two of them that I think actually ended up giving Maddison like an 8 out of 10, and I think like Odegaard like a 6.7 out of 10, is just pass accuracy. Odegaard was trying what he has to try, what he's in the team to be doing, and it wasn't working as well as it usually does. But I want to be very clear also, he was playing with a front three that he's not necessarily entirely familiar with, right? He's not familiar with Gabby Jesus as a left winger and the movement that comes from that, right? He's, I guess, with Nketiah, I don't know if they still see properly eye to eye yet, because there's been, a lot of times where they could have linked up a lot better than they did. So I think that's something to keep in mind, right? And then on top of that, I would say, Odegaard is not only there to play all those balls, he's also there to calm the team down. He's there to, keep the team together in moments like Jorginho, for example, where, another captain could have dug into him and said, you're absolute crap and whatever else, and we could have gone on to lose the game. And as much as I hate Jorginho, you need a calming influence like Odegaard, right? And I get it. If you compare that one game against Maddison's one game, sure. But if you compare one game of, Mikel Antonio in some games against Haaland, Mikel Antonio looks better too. And I know that's obviously hyperbole, and there's not as much of a difference between Odegaard and Maddison as there is between Haaland and Mikel Antonio. But to see all of that flack 1 week or 2 weeks after, you had Gary Neville calling out Odegaard and saying, out of anyone in the Premier League, Pep would take him number one, and everyone was gassing him up and saying, "Oh, Odegaard's so class. He's the best signing that Arsenal have made. We got him from Real Madrid for such a cheap fee. Best signing that we've made, etc., etc." And now you go the opposite way. It just shows how fickle football fans are. That you have a great game, right? You put the team on your back, and then you have not even a clanger game, right? If he's not had a performance like Jorginho where his main cameo has been giving the ball away to lose a goal. No, right? He still did a lot in that midfield. So I don't want to hear any of that stuff about Odegaard, because you can't change it every week, right? Make your mind up about a player and stick to it. And over time, if you see a trend away from that, fair enough, change your mind. But don't swing back and forth every week on, oh, he's a great player, oh, he's wasteful, oh, he's a great player, oh, he's wasteful. Like, what? Are we Man United fans as well? Like, exactly. Like, come on. Like, leave Odegaard alone. We ended up drawing the game. We should have won the game. And he's not the reason why we didn't win it. He was wasteful, sure, but that's his job. That's what he needs to be doing. He needs to be trying those things. He needs to be trying those kinds of passes, and they're not always going to come off. KDB misses a lot of, passes. He misses a lot of shots. He misses free kicks too. But Pep's got him in the team because of what he can do when he gets it right. And it's the same thing for Odegaard, right? That team is built around him, Saka, and maybe Martinelli at times, right? It's built around that three. And of course, he's going to have off games. But if he's having off games and we still end up drawing or we still end up deserving to win, then fair enough, right? But that's where Arteta also needs to be able to make changes and needs to be able to look at players like that and say, okay, wait, he's not having his best game. Swap him out for Vieira. But of course, all of those decisions are affected by injuries. They're affected by all the things that affect everyone else too. So I'm not going to complain about them too much. But in that game, who's he going to bring on for Odegaard? You're keeping Fabio Vieira on. You're going to bring on Havertz for Odegaard? It's not happening. You're not taking the captain off for that and leaving on Vieira, mate.
Vieira was injured anyway, so I mean, you couldn't. You had to take him off. All of that stuff was enforced. I don't think there was much you could do to change that game, to be honest. I mean, maybe you could have brought on Emil Smith-Rowe. I mean, that was another question I'd pose. Like, why is he not getting a chance? It's baffling to me why he's not getting a chance. I think he would be someone you could bring on maybe. But the only thing I would say around the Odegaard thing is, right, it's actually quite uncharacteristic for Odegaard to have such a low pass accuracy. The whole Arsenal fan argument, whenever we get into the Odegaard, Bruno, whatever, the whole thing is always predicated on Bruno tries the hero ball. Basically what you just said is what Bruno does. And when it works, it looks fantastic. When it doesn't work, he doesn't have a good game and people come for him and say he's gone missing. Normally, Odegaard doesn't play like that. I think he plays high percentage football. He just happens to be very creative and good at it. So when it makes it look like he makes the kind of big high risk passes and chance creation look like a low risk, easy, controlled ball. And that's a talent that he's got and a skill. But when it goes wrong, rarely, he's not effective. And you're right. It's totally, you look at the pass completion, his was in the 60%, which is low for Odegaard. And Maddison was in the high 80s, close to 90. And that's how he got his assists. That's how Odegaard was pretty sterile for most of the match. And it's not normal to see Odegaard like that. But I think you've got to give him grace. The same way, and I'm not saying this apples for apples comparison, because I think there's been more examples of this kind of performance with Bruno. You have to let him have them because he's so important to your team. Chance creation, majority of the chances come through Odegaard. Not only chances, goals as well. He's been, scoring goals last season too. So you have to allow him these games. And even Ronaldinho, Zidane, all those big-time dons that we all adore now and idolise, didn't turn up to every single big games. I know the highlight reels make it seem like that now, and nostalgia and people telling you they did. I'm telling you, they didn't. They all had games where they didn't turn up. It didn't work out for them. And like you said, you're actually quite lucky that it didn't happen in a game where you got slapped 6-0 or something like that. You lost. You drew 2-2. You may have deserved to win. You may have deserved to lose. It was a pretty fair result, I think, in the end. But I don't think it's actually going to derail your whole season. It's disappointing. You've got to pick yourselves up from it and, look at the positives. And the bigger worry for me is your injuries, because that can throw a big spanner. If Declan's out for long, if you're going to have to play Jorginho and Havertz and you don't have Trossard off the bench and
Martinelli's out.
It's a bit worrying. Like Martinelli, my God, I think you really missed him. As much as I thought Jesus was lively in the first half, you just didn't have that outlet. You didn't have that person to just rip through their right back and give Porro problems. And I'll be honest with you, Porro's
the one that should have been getting at. We should have been getting at.
Porro,
he's good going forward, but he's not good defending.
Yeah, he's rubbish going back, man. I'm telling you, we caused him problems even when we weren't playing well. Porro was the one we were going for, and Rashford had him on strings at the beginning of that game that we ended up losing. But yeah, it's
I think I was going to say one more thing about Odegaard as well, right? Is like we've come up this season so far against pretty much all low blocks, right? Almost every team we've played against has been on a low block. And if you think about what that means is a lot of the time, Odegaard's not getting into the box. He's staying off of the box and spraying balls around to all the different people, right? And I think this game against Tottenham, they certainly didn't play a low block, right? For the majority of that game, they didn't. They were playing open football, huge gaps in between their defence and midfield because they were trying to do pressing. And as soon as we broke that press, trying to get forward quickly, trying to transition quickly. And I think maybe that's also something we have to take into account is that, of course, Odegaard's passing stats are going to be way better when you play against a low block team where he's just playing the ball around the back, trying little intricate passes here, there, and everywhere. Maybe we need to realise that that's a part of his game he needs to improve, is that like just swinging balls out from deep in his own half or whatever else is maybe not his thing yet. Maybe and he's still young. There's a lot of things that can be improved in his game, and he's clearly got all the tools to do that. But when we look at him, we talk like he has to be KDB right now. He's already the captain of our team. He's already one of the 2 or 3 players that is absolutely carrying this team and was a major reason why we were successful last year. He's clearly key to the way that Arteta wants to play. So as you say, give him a bit of grace, realise he's not the complete footballer yet. And as much as Gary Neville wants to, call him, Pep's number 1 target and whatever else, he's not the complete footballer yet. He's going to have off games. But we can't, as a team, rely on one player to contribute everything to our team. And that's maybe the downfall a little bit of United, and not in a bad way. But you've had to rely heavily on him and Rashford. So if them two aren't firing, what have you got? You had Martial who can't stay fit. It's the same for us. If he's not firing, and if Saka's not firing, and if Martinelli's out injured, what have we got? Because Nketiah can't finish his dinner. Gabby Jesus is a real nuisance, but again can't finish his dinner. So what have we got? You've got to build multiple weapons. It's like with City. De Bruyne goes off injured. Gundogan steps up. Gundogan's not playing well. Rodri steps up. Foden steps up. Julian Alvarez steps up. Haaland steps up. They've got so many weapons. It don't matter which one you get rid of. Another one's coming out of the pocket. And that's the thing with us, right? Right now, and this is something that I saw yesterday on Twitter. Our depth ain't good enough yet. If you've got to come and bring off the bench Jorginho, whereas Pep's got Foden or Bernardo Silva, right? We ain't on a level playing field yet. And that's what annoys me about all these injuries, and that's what maybe annoys me about some of these signings. You signed Havertz to be another weapon, right? You signed Trossard to be another weapon, and Trossard is actually one of the few that is actually looking like a weapon. Did you sign Jorginho to be a weapon? Because he ain't going to do that. He ain't going to score anything. Rodri scores flipping screamers from 30 yards now. Jorginho lets goals into the back of his net. So from that point of view, the transfer strategy also contributes to this, where we have to rely so heavily on Odegaard, and now everyone wants to pile in on him because he's like the major central outlet that we've got at the moment. It's not on. And it plays to the point of Emil Smith-Rowe. We relied on him. He got 10 goals more than 10 goals and assists in his like Premier season for Arsenal. He obviously had a major injury. I get that. And you don't want to rush him back in too soon. But he's got that sauce. If anybody else on that bench has got that sauce, it ain't Havertz, it ain't Jorginho, it ain't even Reece Nelson. It's Emil Smith-Rowe. Get him on the pitch, give him a chance. If you're giving Fabio Vieira a chance, if you're giving Havertz 100 chances, if you're now giving Jorginho chances, why can't Emil Smith-Rowe get a fair shake at it? Because he's shown that he's got the sauce, he's got the juice to do that, to score goals, to get assists. So Arteta, it's on you, mate. You and your Lego head, fix up. Get Emil Smith-Rowe on the pitch. We've got a bloody song about him. Let us sing it.
It's baffling, man. I would love to understand and find out why he's not been playing him. I know he had a big serious injury. I know he's had some setbacks. But he's been technically fit and available on the benches and in squads for a while now. So, yeah, now you have an injury crisis. Surely this is the moment you have to throw him back in. And if you want to ease him in or give him, restricted minutes, then do that. But just not coming off the bench or coming off in garbage time. I don't know, man. It gives me a weird feeling because, like you said, he was one of your big dons. He was from the youth. He's Saka and Emil Smith Rowe song. I remember when there was rumours of selling him to Villa and rumours of selling him this season and stuff like that. Your fans were up in outrage. So it's just a really curious, weird situation. But yeah, let's see, man. Injuries, they've been an understated part of what's happened to us. I'm not getting the violins out because we've also been poor, but the number of injuries that you accumulate, eventually no one's got a big enough squad to deal with them. You've now got 4 or 5 pretty big ones, and it's gonna have an impact, man. And it's the only time I'll, feel like I can understand how Liverpool fans are feeling, last season at the beginning of the season and a couple of seasons ago when they had their whole defence decimated. What can you do, man? You can't build a squad to have like 35 man like Chelsea. It's not sustainable. You have to play within your limits. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Like Chelsea will.
Yeah, maybe. You never know. Let's look at your fixtures, though, this week, because you're also in the Carabao Cup. You've got Brentford away on Wednesday, and then you've got Bournemouth away, and I think you've got the next fixtures away too, so you've got quite a few games on your travels. What do you think about those?
After that as well. So
let's concentrate on these two in the week. What are your predictions? Do you think you'll go through in the Cup?
I think Brentford away is it would be a hard one, but off of the performance that they stuck in at the G-Tech, this weekend, maybe they're primed for the picking as well because they stank. And I've got Mbeumo in my bloody fantasy team, and he stank.
Oh, they made Everton look class.
Stank.
It was weird.
They all stank. Yeah. So from that point of view, maybe we can go and get something. But if you just looked at it on paper, same with you and Crystal Palace, right? I'm thinking, what's going on in the EFL Cup, in the Energy Drink Cup in the third round, that everyone's getting like 2 Premier League teams playing each other? Where are the Wrexhams and the crappy teams? Get me one of them lot. I don't need to be playing bloody Brentford away in the third round of the bloody Carabao Cup, mate. So yeah, I think we can get something from that game, but on paper it's not an easy one. And then we got Bournemouth after that. Yeah. If we've got Bournemouth after that Iraola guy he's not the one. So I expect us to absolutely hammer them because they look shocking as well. So those should be 2.
So you're expecting 2 wins, yeah?
Based off of form, that's 2 wins, and that's 2 easy wins. But based off of how we're playing now, off of their form, yeah, that should be 2 easy wins. But if I have to give my official prediction, we're going to beat Brentford on penalties. Or is it a replay? No. Do they do replays now?
No. It's pens.
It's pens. Yeah, we're going to beat them on pens, and then we're going to struggle for it. And then we're going to go play Bournemouth, and we're going to bang them. I'm thinking 1-1 against Brentford, and we win on pens, and then 4-0 against Bournemouth because they stink.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Brentford one's tricky because you never know with the Carabao Cup, do you? Like, third round, fourth round is primed for the Premier League teams, especially the big boys, to rotate a bit. I think the only thing that might save us, but I think the only thing that might save us from having that scenario is we've got loads of injuries. So I don't think we have the luxury really to rotate the teams.
Got to play fast.
You might see 2 or 3 players come in, but it won't be mass changes. So I agree with you. I think you'll sneak past Brentford, but I wouldn't be shocked if they beat you in that game. But I agree with you. I think you'll batter Bournemouth because they're really open and they play high line football, and they just haven't got the players for it. And it's brave and it's respect. I respect, sticking by your principles because apparently that's how Iraola was playing when he was in Spain, and it's the whole Bielsa ball, Bilbao impact and all that kind of stuff. But the Premier League's a different league, man. You can't be coming here and trying all of that stuff without the quality of player. You need to have that quality of player. And I reckon you guys away, like I said earlier, you're lethal. So I think you'll batter them. I realise now I didn't give my predictions for our games. I think we'll beat Crystal Palace. I imagine it'll be 2-1 and probably something along those lines. We'll probably concede. We'll probably pay the backup goalie, and we might do a few changes. I reckon we'll just about sneak through. And, if you take Brighton out of the equation, our home form is very good. And then, home against Crystal Palace on the weekend, I reckon something similar. I reckon we might win 2-0. We might get a clean sheet in that with Onana back.
I don't know.
It could be a 2-1-2 because actually Edouard's looked all right and Crystal Palace have looked decent.
And Eze's primed to get some goals because he hasn't bagged for a little bit.
Yeah, but Eze's a bit streaky, so I don't know. He had a streak at the back end of last season, and I really rate him. He's a good player, but Crystal Palace just looked like one of those teams where, if I was to put my life on it, I couldn't guarantee they'd score a goal in a game. They could easily come out 0-0 or just.
Well, they're either going to score nothing, or they're going to score like Odson Edouard's going to score a hat trick.
Exactly.
They're a weird team in that way that they're either going to slap goals in, or they're not going to do anything, and they're going to look impotent again. Yeah.
No, it's true. They go from looking completely clueless to looking like absolutely clinical, and you don't know what you're going to get, really. So I imagine and I hope we're going to get 2 wins. And I think if we come off 2 wins, I can see a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. I think we can start to pick our form back up. And looking at our fixtures, they're very winnable. And we should be picking up a lot of points in the next 4 to 5 weeks and come out of the next international break looking a lot better. And so we'll wrap up the pod here. So for those of you watching on YouTube, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share if you can. Try and engage with it as much as possible. If you follow our TikTok, you'll see we're pretty active with the replies. So if you do comment, we will reply back to you and spark a conversation. And for those of you listening to the podcast on an audio only platform, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, please follow and give us a 5-star review. It will obviously really help us get to a wider audience and share great stories like Lawrence's with more people and hopefully grow that community even bigger. But yeah.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Tired of ads interrupting your favorite show? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free-fitness to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.